Good time of day, guys. My name is Godzi, and welcome back to another episode of Higurashi When They Cry, Ch.2 Watanagashi. Last episode, Keiichi, Rena, and Mion went to Satiko's and Rika's house to try and see if they were there. They weren't. Everyone looked all over town. Can't find them. They're missing. Probably dead. More than likely dead. I'm pretty sure they're dead at least. So, yeah, before we get into the bulk of this episode, let's just do our, at this point, ritualistic almost discussion at the beginning, which I don't think this one should take too terribly long, probably like 15 minutes, but we'll see. So spoiler time starting now. If you don't want spoilers for both the anime and later in the visual novel, then mute now. When I pull up the menu, you can unmute. So starting now. Alright, so first things first, I want to bring up the comment that I got, might have been, I think it was 2 episodes ago at this point. It was episode 9, I believe, where a commenter mentioned that there was an arc where, no, it was 3 episodes ago, where where there's an arc where Rena kills multiple people with a knife. Turns out that they made another comment saying that, yes, it is a console arc. So, alright. Personally, I'm not entirely sure how canonical the console arcs are. I have not seen any, unless, like, Higurashi Ray or Outbreak are, like, console arcs, technically speaking, in which case, I guess those ones in particular are canon. But, again, I'm not entirely sure. I do plan on reading the console arcs, at least as many of them as I can, but that's yet to be something I can really do. I'm probably not going to do them until I finish Chapter 8, which I'm not sure how soon I'll get around to that. But we'll see. Should be by the end of 2021, I would like to think at least. Especially since recently, chapters 5 through 8 all went on sale on Steam, so I bought them. So, no more money in the way of finishing this series, hell yeah! So, with that being said, I got a pretty long comment yesterday, describing some things about this chapter and the Onidamashi manga, which I think is what I'm going to discuss first. Or, we'll just discuss the anime in general, real quick. So, first things first, I was talking about how I had a theory about Go in the title, potentially referring to the game Go to describe, usually the analogy is chess, so if the analogy is Go this time, then, well, shit's a little bit different. I think that'd be a bit more on the nose if it was, you know, like, Higurashi When They Cry Shogi, or Higurashi When They Cry Othello, or something like that. But, a commenter said that Go means karma in the more mystical past lives sense. So, that's interesting. As for what that could mean, probably just literally what it means. If Go means karma in the more mystical past lives sense, and it has something to do with probably everybody in that case, because I'd assume anyone can remember past arcs, not just Rika. So, yeah. That is very interesting. So, let's talk about the Satiko Theory real quick. The same commenter who brought up that theory included more information on what they thought in a comment last episode, so I'll read it as follows. I'm not super confident in my theory, lol, just one idea, which is fair. I do think I'm on the right track, though, whether Satiko is the culprit, or if it's someone else, or if she's only one part of it. I don't think they will get away with not making the new culprit one of the club members, though, like writing-wise. I agree to an extent. I think, honestly, the only non-club member that they probably could get away with is Ooishi, but that's also pretty stupid. Honestly, unless it ties into Kekkonia somehow, because only Phase 1 of Kekkonia has been released. I have not read all of Phase 1, only what I've recorded, which is through, like, the 7th in-game chapter. So, actually just 6 episodes of my Let's Play. I do want to read the rest of it as soon as I can, but it's been more than a year at this point since I have read it last, so I'd probably rewatch my series up to that point to get a refresher on, like, what voices I used, for example, and what I was thinking, because I could technically just go back in, reread it, and be like, yeah, now I have a completely different theory about everything that's happening. But I do remember the frickin' triad of dude men. I don't remember what the fuck they were, but I do think I remember thinking, like, one of these dudes is fat, and the only fat character I could think of in, When They Cry was Ooishi. So, unless it's tying in that way, and that's what it is, but, I'm not so sure about that. I feel like I'd have to read more of Keiichi in order to think more about that, because it's like, there's also another dude who more reminded me of George, really. But obviously I don't think Umineko characters can really be the culprit in the new Higurashi anime. It's probably conceivable since it's the same universe and all, and it's only a 4-year gap. It wouldn't be a Keiichi character unless there's time travel bullshit. Like, they just pull out, yeah, the culprit in Higurashi Go? Jaden. But, yeah. Regardless, I do think it'd make most sense for it to be a club member. I'd say the most suspicious ones are probably Mion and Satoko. Up to this point in the anime, I think it'd be difficult for them to get away with it being Mion or Shion. So I think it would probably have to be Satoko, Rena, or Keiichi in that sense. But then at the same time, I feel like it'd be really hard for them to bullshit out Keiichi or Rena at this point. Because, I don't know, would that then mean that if it's Keiichi or Rena, that nothing they did in Onitamashi was due to Hinamizawa syndrome, and it was all Lambda Delta, quote-unquote? I don't know. But, yeah, it's definitely a weird one. We don't really have enough information so far to pinpoint anyone, but I think Satoko's probably the most realistic choice so far. But we'll have to wait and see. I hope they show more differences in episode 2 of Watanagashi. So, we'll see on Thursday. This should be going up on Monday, so we got a little ways to go. So then the differences for the Onitamashi manga, which I'm surprised that's already done, to be fair. So, yeah, I want to read that, but it's only in Japanese, and I don't know Japanese, so awesome. I could probably tell what's going on, though, since I've seen the anime. I could just be like, context clues, I don't know exactly what they're saying, but I know the general story beats, so, yeah. So, here are some of the differences the same commenter mentioned. At the door scene, Keiichi remembers more of Onikakushi than we were led on in the anime. It shows glimpses of the mochi scene, as well as the actual scene of Keiichi killing Rena with the bat delusionless, where she wasn't fighting back and was smiling at him. So that's interesting. I'm not sure how much that actually changes the truth of what happened in Onitamashi, but it does just show more that, for sure, characters can remember previous arcs in Go as well. So, yep. Keiichi went absolutely ham with the clock compared to the anime. He smashed Rena's eye in, reducing it to a blood-spewing chasm, which is a very vivid image. In fact, they were more equally matched in general. That's very interesting. It is very weird how in the anime, it's like, yeah, Rena's not weak by any means. I mean, that's what her whole cute mode is supposed to really be, to show she's not weak. She can beat a fucker up if she wants to. She could probably beat up most characters in this game. She'd probably win a martial arts tournament, realistically, against probably anyone who doesn't use a gun. Or a weapon otherwise. But if she's using her hatchet, just game over. Well, gun, but, you know. So, but it is still weird how Keiichi's not... sure, it's delusions, regardless, because even though, like, it's not first person, if that makes sense, we see what's happening like, from a physical third-person perspective, but from a metaphysical first-person perspective through Keiichi. It's more like everything's being shown through Keiichi's eyes, but through a camera a few feet to the side, because that's how anime works. There's no anime that's actually good that's actually shown through a character's eyes, you know? Because the only anime in that sense I can think of is fucking One Room, and that's just a cringe fest. But it is still weird how Keiichi doesn't seem to be able to fight back properly at all. Like, sure, he bashes her against the table, and the first strike to the head with the clock seems to actually affect her. But then the rest of the time, granted, neither of them seem to be making any headway in that fight in the anime. But, it seems like in the manga they are both making headway, I guess. If Rena's stabbing him and Keiichi's just bludgeoning her with an alarm clock. What's that clock made of, by the way? I find it really hard to believe that, like, that clock could kill someone anyways. So I do think that it's 100% gotta be true that Keiichi was the one stabbing Rena and Rena was fighting back with the clock. Because then that would explain why Keiichi didn't fucking die. And why Rena did, because there's no way you kill someone with that plastic alarm clock. Doesn't happen. You'd have a better shot at killing somebody with this microphone that I use, because it's, you know, got, like, metal, and it's more rounded. It's not a fucking... it's not a fucking alarm clock. Alarm clocks aren't meant to kill people, granted, neither are microphones, but, you know. Next up. Additionally, the hallucination of scary Rena in the doorway is confirmed to be a memory of Onikakushi. While it happens, we see the speech bubbles Kairu, go away, and Gomenasai, I'm sorry. So that's interesting. I don't think that really changes the story much either, but it's nice to get that confirmation that it's indeed a memory of Onikakushi, and not a hallucination that Keiichi's having in Onidamashi. But granted, I don't think it really changes much either way. Unless memories, like, shift the course, I suppose. We'll have to see. After the mid-fight time skip, with them both laying bloody on the ground, Rena is actually on top of Keiichi, their hands touching. Cute. Even in death, they're the best ship. Alright, now I'm 90% sure same knife means that one knife was used to kill Rika and Satoko rather than it being the knife Rena used. It's covered in blood, so there's room for error, but it looks different. I think that's probably a fair assumption that Rika and Satoko were killed with a different knife than Rena or Keiichi was killed with, so... yeah, because I'm pretty sure Rena didn't even bring that knife to Keiichi's house. She grabbed it off the counter to the left of her. I say left because I'm, like, wary about the frickin' handedness of these characters at this point. So, yeah. And then the last thing is we get an extra Rika and Hanyu scene at the end where Rika expresses confusion at why she died again. This bolsters the idea that she did indeed solve the old tragedy in the background. That would make sense. I think that would make a lot of sense. We didn't really see how she did it, but there are a lot of signs that that's probably the case. There are a couple others listed below. Why isn't it loading properly? What? Okay, hold on. Let's fucking refresh my comments, because apparently I can't, read that comment. There we go. So the next difference is Rena didn't have nearly as much random shit. No handcuffs. That's interesting, I guess. We don't even see her use them, to be fair, but that's probably because her, delusional plan didn't really come to fruition, because Keiichi killed her. So it's hard to believe what she was actually going to do with them. Because, like, she had a hacksaw and crap like that, so you can imagine, yeah, dismembering the body and hiding it. But then there's just so much random stuff, so, yeah. And then we see lots of blood spurt from Keiichi's neck in the hospital scene that they didn't show in the anime. He probably died. Yeah, I think that's also fair. So, yeah, that does give a good amount of insight into more of what happened in Onidamashi. So, very good to know. I will keep all that in mind. There's one other comment, too, about the whole go thing. They said, I was just gonna comment that go means 5, but it's also go without the U. :3, or some wacky :3 emoji that I've actually never seen before. That's a very funny emoji. I think that's interesting. And my dog is barking, and my mom is yelling at her. So, as far as what's happened in Onitamashi, I don't really have any new theories. I still have not looked at the handedness for the characters, but if we can assume so far that, like, Keiichi's delusional, so most of what happened in Onitamashi could have literally just not happened, technically speaking. I find it hard to believe, but all we know is that we can't take things at face value, so yeah. Depending on how Watanagashi pans out, we'll have to see, because I don't really have any theories as to how Watanagashi will pan out, because the only major difference is that Keiichi gave Mion the doll instead of Rena, which I still don't even remember, like, the full rabbit hole that can cause. And other than that, there's just a few minute differences as to, like, the order of events, why Keiichi goes to Okinomiya a second time, how the bikes fall over, etc., etc., etc. Doesn't really matter too much so far. So, yeah. Welcome back, guys. Let's continue. I saw a ceiling I was familiar with. Though I was groggy from sleep, I did notice that I was in my futon, like I was every morning. I looked at my clock, and despite having turned in so late last night, I had awoken at precisely the same moment I always did. I'm so low on sleep, but I guess you really can get up at the same time every day. Yeah, I do that. Even though daylight savings time, so technically not. The secrets of the human body never cease to amaze me. If I went back to sleep like this, I would definitely not be waking up again. I spurred myself on and slipped out of my futon. Mom asked me about last night at breakfast. Apparently we, too, had gotten a call asking if we knew where Rika-chan and Satoko were, and Mom vaguely understood that something serious was happening. So then, you were out late last night with all your friends looking for them? Until about 3, I think. Yeah. Did you find them? Rika-chan and Satoko-chan, I mean? Crunch. I wearily bit into my toast. It really didn't have any taste. I mean, if it's just toast, then there probably isn't much taste to it, to be fair. It's bread. Just then, we heard the chime go ding-dong. Cool. I looked up at the clock and said it was about 5 minutes past my regular meeting time with Rena. It was her at the door. Good morning. I don't know if it's because I'm recording or what, but I get these random visual glitches where sprites show up before backgrounds. They, like, flash in. It's weird. Did you get any sleep? Did you? I think I slept for a few hours. You could probably count them on a chicken's toes, though. Chickens have 4 toes, right? 3 in the front, 1 in the back. I used to have chickens. I didn't really pay attention to their feet, to be fair. Rena seemed pretty sleep-deprived as well. There was something missing from her usual spirit. Are you going to school? Yeah. I think it would be better that way, she said, smiling, albeit stiffly. Rena was probably worrying her heart out about those two as well. Even so, she wanted to go to school. If you stay home today, I think you'd just be worrying non-stop and sleeping. I don't want that. So let's go to school together. Alright. Wait just a moment. I'll get ready. I was just a little bit happy about Rena mustering that much consideration for me. We went to the place where we'd usually meet up with Mion, but she was nowhere to be found. We were a little bit late today, so we thought she'd be waiting for us. I guess Mi-chan couldn't wake up today, huh? I mean, that's probably in character, but also sus. That's right. For her, it wasn't just yesterday. She was up all night looking for the mayor the night before last, too. We waited for a bit. Time passed until it got to the point where it was okay for us to go on alone, and we exchanged glances. What do we do? Wait a little longer? At that point, my brain, which had finally been woken up by the morning air, recalled the ominous words Ooishi-san had left me with last night. The leaders of the three families were disappearing one after the other. And next, it might be the Sonozaki's leader, except you dumbass, it's the granny, not Mion, technically speaking. Could Mion have... No, that couldn't be.
Let's go. Let's let her sweep for today.
Rena gave me a pat on the back. Mion, she's still here, right?
Did you say something?
Oh, nothing. Just talking to myself. Let's get moving. The two of us headed to school by ourselves. On the way, we saw a bunch of our classmates accompanied by their parents. It even looked like some of them were being taken to school by car. That would make sense given the fact that children disappeared the night before. Surprisingly, the principal was also standing watch at the school gate. I'd never seen that before. Good morning. Guardian, good morning. The principal was bowing to our classmates' guardians. The wooden sword leaning next to him was a little ominous. Mayabara-kun, good morning. Ryugu-kun, good morning.
Good morning?
Your teacher has something important to say, so head straight to the classroom. Alright? Rena and I said nothing. The madness that only existed at night had finally crawled out into the sunlight. That's what it felt like. Alright.
Good morning, everyone.
The hushed conversations that had been spreading for a while now all disappeared like an illusion the moment our teacher walked in the door. Silence dominated the classroom. The principal came in with our teacher as well. This was clearly not a normal morning. No kidding. I mean, two of your classmates functionally died, so...
First, the principal has something important to tell everyone. Go ahead, Mr. Principal.
Does he not have a name? The principal cleared his throat and approached the dies? Okay. I'm sure some of you already know this. The classroom was dead silent. Everyone was staring at Rika-chan and Satoko's empty seats. The principal briefly and simply declared that Rika-chan and Satoko had gone missing. There wasn't a single person in the classroom who didn't already know. There seemed to be many, however, who couldn't accept it as the truth. Probably Tomita and Okamura. It had been confirmed to them now by the principal's words. There were sobs throughout the classroom, and I heard a kid crying. They steadily spread throughout the whole room. The big-hearted principal wasn't able to keep his cool either.
Okay, everyone, pay attention. From today on, your parents or guardians will be taking you to school. For those of you whose parents can't do so, you'll be coming here in groups. I made a handout, so read it carefully and be sure to show it to your parents. Understand?
The teacher's voice was a little abrasive. Not even she could conceal the strain she felt from this unprecedented, abnormal situation. They should have just canceled school today. However, Rena told me that the school was also like a nursery for the students whose parents both worked, so some of them wouldn't want school to be canceled.
Well then, let's begin the lesson. Class president, she's absent, I see. Then whoever is on day duty, let me hear it. All rise!
That feeling of wanting to maintain an everyday atmosphere, even if only in school, precisely because our lives had been messed up, was something that I agreed with at this point. Okay. Then I'm guessing time passed, Mion didn't end up coming to school, and you're worried, huh? As for the teacher, who always had her lunch in the staff lounge, she ate in this classroom today. I had to laugh at her curry bento, which was just a rumor until now, but there was nobody to laugh with me. Rena brought her chair and lunch over to my seat. Today, it was only the two of us. The fact that we didn't need to drag any other desks over was sad.
I'm sleepy.
Yeah, I don't feel like sleeping anymore, though. In fact, I'm jealous of the people that could sleep at a time like this. They've got nerves of steel.
You're right.
I was sleepy this morning, but my drowsiness had dissipated after coming to school and constantly feeling the incredible tension. Rena's bento box didn't have its usual luster. That was to be expected. Rena was up for a long time last night, too. She wouldn't have had time to make her lunch beforehand, since it's not like she would have gotten up early this morning. Grab anything you want. Go ahead. You can admit that my bento is better today.
Okay. Then I'll have some. Wow. A chikuwa roll with perilla and cheese? That's interesting.
I have no idea what that is. Cheese, I understand, though. Rena, yours might have ready-made food in it, but it's pretty good, too. I realized the two of us were desperately trying to brighten the afternoon mood to its usual level as much as we could. I looked around the classroom, and it seemed like we were the only ones trying to do so, surrounded as we were by gloominess. Okay.
Just the two of us sharing our lunches like this. It's sort of like something.
Our laughter grew quieter. I was the first one to mess up. Sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's not your fault.
Our chopsticks both stopped moving. We couldn't keep it up anymore. Rika-chan, Satiko, I wonder where they went. Those words might have sounded too miserable. Everyone was thinking it, using roundabout ways to address the topic, but I came right out and said it. I heard Rena catch her breath.
Yesterday, while you were gone, I heard a bunch of things, so I'll tell you what I know, okay?
Sorry again about last night. Go ahead. At that time, since they had arrived for support, Rena was helping the Ladies' Society cook the miso soup we'd had. They reported all of the information the villagers had gathered, and Rena said she overheard it. They didn't know anything important, though, did they? Rika-chan and Satoko went home after school, and then apparently went somewhere on their bikes. But other than that, Mion had told me yesterday, we had no clues.
Yeah. The police also said that they probably went out on their bikes to go play somewhere as soon as they got home. If they were going out to play somewhere on their bikes right after getting home, then they might have gone into town. So I guess they concluded they disappeared while in Okinomiya. The police were saying how they were going to expand their search to Okinomiya in the morning.
That's probably not where they are, though. In town. It makes sense why we couldn't find them, even though we searched all of Hinamizawa then. Still, something didn't fit. I had no basis for thinking that. Just a gut feeling. I revealed something to Rika-chan that was likely very important to her that day. Then, Rika-chan had told me to leave it to her. And then... what did she say? Oh, right. If she didn't work hard, then something bad might happen to the dog, too, I think. With all the talk of dogs and cats, I still didn't have the faintest idea what she really meant, but it might have been Rika-chan's way of saying this was a race against time. That makes sense. Damn it! I'd selfishly pushed my anxiety on Rika-chan and tried to run away. When I thought about it, I shouldn't have run back then. I should have asked her more about the dogs and cats. The more I think back on it, I really screwed up. Anyway, I don't think Rika-chan was in a situation where she would just go off to play somewhere. Of course, I didn't have any evidence or conviction to base that on. It was just a hunch. I don't think she'd go into town.
You think so too, Keiichi-kun? I agree. Rika-chan and Satiko must have disappeared in Hinamizawa.
I looked back at Rena, startled. I could hear the conviction in those words. Both of you are playing detective now, huh? Without replying to my gaze, she took her bento box and went to the hallway.
I'm going to go rinse this out.
She timed that in a way that broke off the conversation. Suddenly, I got the feeling that the next thing she had to say would be hard to say aloud in the classroom. I hurriedly grabbed my bento box and followed her. Rena didn't go to the kitchenette, but rather to the water fountains out back, where students seldom went. The water flowed down onto our bento boxes. During that time, Rena didn't say a word. Then after making sure there were no other students around, she finally opened her mouth to speak.
The whole thing about Rika-chan and Satoko-chan going to town to play and then disappearing, that didn't make sense for some reason, so I decided to investigate a little bit myself.
Who did you ask? What did you ask them about?
I asked the Lady Society all kinds of things. There was a lot of tofu in the miso soup yesterday, remember? The old lady from the Tomita tofu shop came, too.
Oh, interesting exposition, but okay. The Tomita tofu shop. Oh, I remember. That was one of the stores on the road leading to the hospital. Those huge lumps of tofu dancing in the bathtub-like cistern always looked nice and refreshing.
The old lady says she remembers Satiko-chan stopping to buy tofu there on her way home from school.
Tofu? Well, it's on the way home, right? How was that a clue?
Just listen. Do you remember when we went to Rika-chan's house?
Rena stepped away from the sinks and spread her arms wide to recreate the space of Rika-chan's room.
There was a pot in her gas cooker, and there was miso soup in it. I think there was probably about half of it inside. The rest was in the refrigerator. They must have been planning to make chilled tofu. It was on a plate in plastic wrap.
So, yada yada, basically they wouldn't have left while they were making that. As Rena explained, she walked around, as if she were really going through Rika-chan's room. Still, Rena, why does this matter?
Keiichi-kun, when you make miso soup, you put the tofu in last. That means that Rika-chan, or Satiko-chan, whoever was cooking, was standing there making it up until right before dinner time.
Right up until dinner time? Isn't that relative, though? Like, assuming they get out of school at, like, 3-ish, they could technically have dinner as early as 4 and as late as, like, 8. So, of course, that's in 12-hour time, not 24, but, you know. Wasn't everyone saying that their bikes weren't around, so they must have gone somewhere to play by themselves? So the reason no one saw them around is because they didn't leave until later.
The trash in the countertop bin was put in there really awkwardly, too. Rika-chan makes most of their food and lunches, but occasionally Satiko-chan does it too. So Satiko-chan was cooking that night.
So that means that Satiko, at least, didn't go somewhere to play. She was preparing dinner? So Rika left first, then Satiko, I see. That makes sense with what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah. Then I took a look at the rice cooker, and there was rice for 2 still in there.
So she made dinner for both of them, but neither of them ate it. Is that it? Rena nodded.
So next I looked in the fridge. There was some chilled tofu, made from the other half that they bought. That's not all either. There were a whole bunch of plates with side dishes for dinner, and all of them were in plastic wrap.
You usually plastic wrap things so that you can have leftovers for the next day. My mom does it all the time too, using them in breakfast or lunch.
That's right. You use plastic wrap to save leftovers for later. So the fact that they were in the fridge means that they didn't plan on eating them that night, at least.
Is that what it means?
Keiichi-kun, think a little harder. Their dinner was totally untouched and wrapped up. What do you think that means?
Well, that means they didn't need to eat dinner anymore. So they would have gone out to eat or order takeout.
It must have been really sudden, too. If they had decided to do that beforehand, they wouldn't have made anything, but
They were invited.
there was dinner for the 2 of them. That means that when Satiko-chan was making their dinner, they really thought that they were going to eat it until right before they didn't.
So then, the theory about the 2 of them going out to play and then disappearing is wrong.
Yep. They disappeared after making dinner, and right before they ate it. Probably around 7 o'clock.
Where would they have gone at a time like that by themselves without eating?
That's obviously where this is leading. Keiichi-kun, do you remember? On their fold-out tables, there were things like soy sauce and a chopstick holder.
There might have been something like that. I didn't remember.
The container for the soy sauce, it was empty. There wasn't even a drop left. Chilled tofu wouldn't taste good without it.
Oh, they went to the store then.
So I looked under their sink for the larger bottle of soy sauce they have.
You sure know a lot about where to keep stuff.
I've been to Rika-chan's house and cooked for them before.
Rena cleared her throat, her face returning to a serious expression.
Then when I opened the cabinet, the big bottle of soy sauce wasn't there at all.
The fact that I remember this big bottle of soy sauce is ridiculous. Of all things, like, it wasn't there. What does that mean? They went to buy more? Like,
everything I'm going to say from here on is just Rena's idea. So please listen until the end without saying anything.
Or because they didn't have any, they decided to, like, go eat out and get soy sauce and eat that the next day? Like, last night, Satiko was making dinner like normal. Rika-chan usually watched TV until the food was ready, so she was probably lying down watching a variety show or something. Satiko put the tofu in the miso soup, and right when dinner was about to be ready, she noticed that they were out of soy sauce. So Rika-chan, who had nothing to do, brought the big bottle of soy sauce to a neighbor's house to borrow theirs. Okay. Wait, was the bottle not there, or was it empty? Wasn't there, okay. I don't really know my neighbors that well. Would people be willing to just give her soy sauce?
Yeah, it's not all that uncommon in Hinamizawa.
Alright, kinda remember this too. So Rika-chan rode her bike out to get some soy sauce. No matter how long Satiko-chan waited though, Rika-chan didn't come back. So then Satiko-chan called up the house where Rika-chan was going. Would Rika happen to be imposing on you? Something like that. Then the other person must have replied with something like this.
We have plenty of food here, so you should come too, Satiko-chan. Rika-chan has already eaten. I think that's how they called her out here.
Satiko called Rika a few names in private and wrapped up the dinner she had made for them. She put it in the fridge so she could use it for breakfast and lunch the next day. Then Satiko got on her bike too, and headed for the house where Rika-chan was. And then they died.
Okay, but this is already pretty strange. You don't normally make so much food that you can give it to people who suddenly arrived at your house.
A veteran housewife would never normally make so much food that she could feed 2 extra people. Could it have just been a coincidence that they made too much?
It's still unthinkable.
Rena flatly denied me.
Since Rika-chan knew that Satiko-chan had worked really hard to make dinner for them, didn't she? No matter what kind of food she was offered, she wouldn't let Satiko-chan's dinner go to waste.
This was all only circumstantial evidence and Rena's guesswork. Even so, it was all extremely convincing. It was the only ray of hope we had to topple the situation bereft of clues. Then Rena, where did Rika-chan go? To get soy sauce. That was the heart of it. It would have to be somewhere she'd be comfortable with asking for soy sauce, and somewhere Satiko wouldn't think it's suspicious that she'd been invited for dinner. So, who was it? Like Mion? Rena slowly shook her head. You kidding me? You don't! You make up all this, you're probably right, and then you can't just think like, yeah, probably Mion. Granted, she's your friend, but still.
That's all for Rena's guesses. These are all just ideas, okay? Keep them a secret from the police.
What is there to hide? Even if only half of what you say is right, it should be a good clue for all this.
Keiichi-kun, this all means suspecting someone from Hinamizawa. We can't suspect anyone without a really good reason.
I saw a few girls come over to rinse out their bento boxes. Rena cut the conversation short there and returned to the classroom. I stayed there alone, my body bathed in the lively voices of the cicadas. Let's think about this, in my own way. Rena had barely any information to go on, and yet she'd reasoned out that much. So there should be something that only I, who knew far more than Rena did, could deduce. Ooishi-san said this last night too, but this incident was definitely occurring within Hinamizawa. Rena might not have wanted to believe it, but it's basically a given that the culprit is someone from the village. The trigger for everything was when the 4 of us trespassed in the Forbidden Storehouse. Somebody saw us going in there. For the culprits, breaking the taboo was a crime punishable by death. So that night, Tomatake-san and Takano-san were sacrificed. There were 2 left. Shion and myself. However, before the culprits bore their fangs on Shion and me, they went after the mayor, to whom Shion had confessed her sin. Next, they went for Rika-chan, to whom I'd confessed my sin. Then what about Satiko? Just a stray bullet? By itself, Rika-chan being sacrificed after I'd told her everything was mortifying. But Satiko, who was sacrificed for no reason, wasn't that all the more regrettable? Everything was my fault. Who would be the next to disappear? Would it be Shion and me next time? Why? Why weren't the culprits going for Shion and me right away, though? If they had enough power to erase the mayor and Rika-chan, then why not just get rid of Shion and me? If they went for us, well, I wouldn't like it, but I could still tolerate it. What I couldn't forgive was them getting rid of those we'd confessed to. Now that I think of it, yesterday, Shion said something alarming. She felt like someone was watching her. So then, was someone watching me as well? Strangely though, I hadn't felt anything like that until now. Even though I'm the root cause of everything, I had never once had that impression. Maybe that was simply because Shion was more cautious than me, and I was just careless. That's another story though. Let's get back on track. Why weren't the culprits going after Shion and me? I felt like that's where the key to this lay. Could it be? Was I making a big assumption that I shouldn't have been? I thought and thought, but couldn't come up with an answer. The one thing I understood was that I was a concerned party to this case, and that I had a duty to watch over it until everything got resolved. I heard the ring of the bell declaring the end of lunch break. Would somebody else disappear tonight? If nobody else did, then I wanted them to get rid of me tonight for sure, and then put an end to all of this. Shion's hysterical voice on the phone last night came back to mind. They planned to murder those close to us first, make us as miserable as possible, and only then would they kill us. Mayabara-kun, lunch break is over. Go back to the classroom. At the principal's urging, I returned to the classroom, which was quiet as the streets at night. Okay. There were a lot of parents picking up their children after school. It was just like a kindergarten. The students whose parents didn't come went home as a group. We left school with everyone else, following the assigned route. Even while leaving, nobody said anything funny. They all looked like exhausted mountaineers silently marching through the mountains. As we went, one left, and then another, and in the end it was just Rena and me. I was supposed to escort Rena all the way to her house, but she declined. Will you be alright? It's not safe to go alone.
It would be just as dangerous for you to go home by yourself after bringing me back, Keiichi-kun. It's still light out anyway. I'll be fine.
I see. Then be careful, okay?
Yeah. Huh? Isn't that a policeman?
Rena pointed towards my house. There was a car stopped in front of it. Hey, howdy, hey. From out of that car came Ooishi-san. Ooishi-san. He must have been waiting for my return to ambush me. Wanna get in my ice-cold car? Not now. Wait, ice? Ooishi-san started walking over wearing that annoying grin. Rena, you should go. If you get involved with him, you'll be here for hours.
But what do the police want with you? With you?
Rena's a good person. Even when I made a fuss over Rika-chan's disappearance, she never asked me why I did. She could have been suspecting me ever since then, and that would have been okay. Even so, she still hadn't asked me anything. She didn't try and pressure me into revealing the truth. I'm not the culprit.
I know that.
That said, I can't say that I'm totally uninvolved with this incident. Rena simply listened, smiling like she always did. Even though I had insinuated I was related to the incident, she didn't look at me as though she were looking at something dirty. I'll tell you next time.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Get going then. Rena gave me a slight bow and trotted away, leaving me alone with Ooishi-san, who walked over. Hello, hello. Welcome home, Mayabara-san. Hello. It looks like your parents aren't here. My, was I in a bit of a spot? He came all the way to my house? I could only thank my good fortune that my parents were absent. Since neither of them was around at this hour, they would probably be back late. I think Dad got called out on business. I don't think he'll be back until later. I see. Well, that's convenient, I suppose. We can do this without giving your parents any strange ideas. Ooishi-san pushed my back, prompting me to walk. It seemed like he wanted me to get in the car. Are you taking me to the police station? I wasn't the culprit, but I was the cause of everything. It wouldn't be weird if he wanted to investigate me. That kind of gave me a resigned feeling. No, I just don't want to stand around talking. We can just talk in the car, that's all. Come now, don't be shy. He opened the back door and urged me inside. If I got in, I wouldn't have a very easy time getting out. If I said no, however, this man might really handcuff me and take me away. I couldn't refuse. I could only accept in good grace. The inside of the car had been cooled too much by the air conditioner. There it is. And there was a rusty smell coming from the filter, which must have been cleaned only rarely. Oh, is it too cold? I'll turn the car off. He turned off the engine and it suddenly became quiet, and the voices of the Higurashi, with all their cruel loneliness, snuck inside. Quack, 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 quack. Sounded to me like a chorus of voices, lamenting my exorbitant punishment for having harbored such foolish curiosity. For a few moments, while listening to those voices, I myself lamented the days that had been twisted and distorted since that night. Ooishi-san, as if waiting for me to voluntarily begin talking, lit a cigarette and listened to the Higurashi. The silence became deafening, and I was the one to fold first. Who folded first? How's the investigation going? The investigation? Of what? There have been so many. Which do you mean? All of them. Well, alright then. They're officially secret investigations and we're under a media blackout, but I'll let you in on them. Then, shall we start from the first incident? The freak deaths of Tomatake-san and Takano-San on the night of Watanagashi. On this one, embarrassingly enough, we haven't made any progress at all. First of all, Tomatake-san. There are indicators on his body that he was assaulted by a group of people, but we have no explanation for him clawing out his own throat and dying. We suspect an overdose from a stimulant or something, but we didn't detect anything. What about Takano-san? The same, we're in the dark. Autopsies for those who are burned to death are real tough. We believe she was doused in gasoline after she was strangled. That one falls under the neighboring prefecture's police department. They haven't been very cooperative, even though it happened in our territory. Oh, that's not really relevant, though. So the police didn't know anything other than the fact that the victims died inexplicably. Nonetheless, the times when the incidents occurred have been generally placed right after the festival ended. It's a bit uncertain in Takano-san's case, but the likely prospect is that she was murdered at about the same time as Tomatake-san, then dumped in the mountains. Why would they bring a dead body all the way to the mountains? They should have just brought Tomatake-san out there too. Oh my, Mayabara-san, you're quite sharp, you know that? Of course, I do believe that is something we need to be attentive of. There are a bunch of other suspicious things, but this is about all I can tell you at this point. How about the mayor? Have there been any clues? Having exhausted that topic, I changed the subject. Otherwise, he might turn the conversation on me. We investigated his movements on the day he disappeared. We didn't find anything that could provide any clues, but I'll tell you about it anyway. The mayor, Keiichi Kimiyoshi. Apparently he was suffering from severe hemorrhoids. Good for him. Frickin', what was that dude's name from Gintama? People who've lived a long time have an unusual amount of pride. So the mayor hadn't been telling anyone that he was going to a proctologist to a certain university hospital in Shishibone. On the day he disappeared, he had an appointment for a checkup, so he went out first thing in the morning. Even I knew that big hospitals, like university hospitals, had a really long waiting time. Apparently people would get in line hours beforehand, even if they had an appointment. His exam ended at 1 p.m. After that, he ate a light meal in the hospital restaurant and passed the time reading a magazine. We know this because of a receipt we found in his wallet at his house. Okay. There was nothing suspicious at all about that. That day, he had planned to go to a meeting in the assembly hall in the evening. He was supposed to return home with plenty of time to spare, but while he was on the train coming back, there was an accident. Seems it delayed him a bit, and he only got back to his house right before the meeting was scheduled to start. His family witnessed a very hectic mayor leaving to go to the assembly hall at the shrine. What was the meeting about? He disappeared on his way back home, right? The 3 families and the essential members of the town assembly were at the meeting. We think they were discussing how to deal with the serial freak death incidents that had happened again this year. So then, on his way home, the old man who had treated Shion like his own daughter, he was a dependable person who would encourage Shion whenever she felt pressured by anxiety, and yet, Shion's painful voice struck me right in the heart. Huh? Oh, what's the matter? I was taken aback by how strange my own voice sounded. What was it that just surprised me? Yeah, what was it, dude? I squeezed my head with my hands to try and drag back out what I had only realized for a split second. Remember, Keiichi Maebara, you just realized something! Something important! The night of Watanagashi. That was when everything started. That night, Takano-San and Tomatake-san died. The next morning, word of the incident spread throughout Hinamizawa. They planned to talk about it during the evening meeting. The mayor, however, had an appointment at the hospital, and as planned, he went there without telling his family. He got a checkup at the hospital. Ate something, apparently at Angel Mort. And then there was an unexpected delay on his train ride back. When he returned, the meeting was already about to start. The mayor changed clothes, got on his bicycle, and hurried to the assembly hall at the shrine as fast as he could. From when he heard about the incident on the way to Watanagashi until when he showed up at the assembly hall, everything he was doing that day was done in secret. During that time, nobody found out that. He went to the hospital alone. He ate alone. He got on the train alone. I don't know why my dog's barking again. That all meant he had absolutely no contact with anyone else. You couldn't have even called him on the phone. Okay, but what does that mean, Keiichi Maebara? Shion... Well, no, because Shion told him the night of the festival, right? Why does that matter, Keiichi Maebara? Are you really...
Kei-chan, what should I do?
What's wrong? Tell me. We're not keeping secrets from each other, right?
Old man Kimiyoshi, I told him everything.
I told him everything. I told old man Kimiyoshi everything.
That night, I told the mayor that we snuck into the ritual storehouse, and that someone saw us and was out to get us.
Right. What then?
Old man Kimiyoshi didn't get angry. He smiled, then told me that if I was properly sorry about it, there was no way I'd be demoned away. He was really smiling, and he told me to leave it to him.
Sweat burst out of my body like bullets. They became one long strand, and slid down from my forehead to my nose, and fell. So then, what does it mean? Hey, Keiichi Maebara, no more playing dumb. When did she tell him? Shion said she learned of the incident from a phone call her father had made that morning. Oh. So yeah, it had to be that day, so okay, yeah, that's fair then. The mayor had left the house first thing in the morning for his appointment at the hospital. He didn't tell anybody where he was going. Nobody knew about him going to the university hospital. Excuse me. Furthermore, his train ride back to his house was delayed by an accident. As soon as he got home, he rushed out to the assembly hall. Then the meeting at the assembly hall began, and continued until it was dark out. Then, everyone left. Nobody saw him after the meeting was over. He just disappeared. Which meant... Mayabara-san? Are you alright? If you're too hot, I can turn on the air conditioner, Another part of me was messing with my thoughts, demanding that I didn't think any further than that. My head was pounding violently, and the fluids packed inside it all blended together until nothing made sense. It was just about to settle, yet it had been smashed and melted in the blink of an eye, no longer able to retain its shape. Mayabara-san? Are you in there? Yeah. Ooishi-san lit yet another cigarette. There was yet another cigarette butt placed in the ashtray. Was it displaying the passage of time? Had my thoughts been frozen over for that long? I've tried to tell you everything I know. In return, feel free to tell me anything you want, Mayabara-san. My mind had become a gigantic, oozing mess. My brain felt like it had been totally minced by the blades of a blender, and I couldn't think. Now, don't clam up again. If there are any misunderstandings, I'd like to clear them up first. I don't think you're the culprit here or anything. Ooishi-san gave his best attempt at an adult smile. I know the four of you snuck into the ritual storehouse that night. Everyone in the village heard rumors about it by the next day. That in itself means we should take you in for trespassing, but that isn't the problem. It's what was inside. What was inside that made the people who snuck in there end up as sacrifices? There wasn't anything. As soon as I said it, I regretted confirming my presence there, but I knew it didn't matter anymore. Was there really nothing in there? I mean, everyone who went in is being sacrificed one by one, you know? Even the mayor and Rika-san who switched the lock on the door was sacrificed. What was inside that could have caused such terrible things to happen? I was far too tired of keeping quiet about this. Perhaps that was Ooishi-san's goal all along, but again, that didn't matter anymore. There were just a lot of torture devices that were used a long time ago. I looked around at them with everyone. Was that really all? That was really all. There was nothing terrible in there that would make you keep silent. Like a pile of psychoactive drugs. Maybe a secret poppy workshop. Perhaps there were mountains of Soviet or Chinese handguns. There weren't any suspicious wooden boxes or containers packed in there. There was nothing as exaggerated as what Ooishi-san was hoping for, but I felt like in a way there were plenty of terrible things hidden in there. From the perspective of someone who viewed the storehouse as sacred, whether or not I thought I had seen some crazy things didn't matter in the slightest. The four of us broke the taboo. Punish us. That should have been what happened. We put in a request for a search warrant thinking that there might have been some secrets hidden in that storehouse. It's been the sabotage of the century. They said it would be an insult to religious figures, and something about the right to free religion in the Constitution. Jeez. That's why I really didn't have any other recourse but to ask you since you went in there. There really was just old, rusty, dusty torture equipment. Nothing else stood out. Then Tomatake-san and Takano-san were only killed as a punishment for having broken the taboo? I didn't have an answer for the only part. I suppose I won't bother hiding it anymore. You're the only one to escape harm so far. Everyone but you has disappeared, and yet you alone are safe. What's the difference between you and them that would protect you but bring harm to the others? That's what I want to know. There was something wrong with what Ooishi-san was saying, but I couldn't think of it immediately. I had to think back through my mind for a second. Yes, Tomatake is dead. Takano's dead. Kimiyoshi's missing. Rika's missing. Satoko's missing, yet he's saying that Shion's missing. I wonder what that means. Wait, what? You alone. You alone. What? Wait a second. What do you mean by you alone? I'm saying that you alone have been left alive, right? Out of the four people who tiptoed into the storehouse for ritual implements, I mean. The only one left alive? Hold on. Shion was still... Jiro Tomatake-san and Mio Takano-san died that night. And Shion Sonozaki disappeared the next day. Only you are still safe and sound at this point. Why only you? I'm saying that's what I want to know. Shion disappeared? That's impossible! I unintentionally raised my voice, but I didn't care about that. Tomatake-san died, Takano-san died, and Shion disappeared? When did she disappear? What is this guy talking about? Oh, well now, I thought you were long since aware of this. This is the first I've heard of it! Shion disappeared? When? Well, going back a bit, she disappeared the day after Watanagashi. Going back a bit? Stop saying stuff I don't understand. Shion Sonozaki spends the night at relatives' houses, depending on her mood on any given day, so no one thought much of her not knowing where she was. She frequently takes days off from school, too. Her teacher has been pretty troubled by it. I didn't ask about any of that. I'm asking you when Shion disappeared. I told you it was the day after Watanagashi. Not make sense, right? Ooh, wow. Making this place photo negative is wacky. The fluids in my body all reversed direction. I lost my sense of balance, and everything I could see started to warp and twist out of shape. I simply couldn't endure it. Hang on. Shion had already disappeared? Then, that night, that call, that phone call, who was that? She called me every night. She encouraged me. We vowed that we would do our best to live on and not be erased. Yes, that should have been a phone call with Shion. Should have been a phone call with Shion. She took breaks from class like it was nothing, and her family wouldn't listen when I told them, so I didn't bother calling the school in the end. So it ended up taking quite a while before we realized she disappeared. I felt a stabbing pain like needles were being pushed in every pore of my body. It started on my back and began spreading throughout the rest of me. When it had completely covered the surface of my skin, it began to worm its way inside my stomach as well. Don't you remember? We talked at the library the day after Watanagashi. Shion-san was there then. That was the last we saw of her. No one knows where she's been since. That can't be. That day, Ooishi-san had only caught me, and Shion bounded away, lying that she needed to go to work. Didn't she call me that night? Her job was at a restaurant called Angel Mort, right? She hasn't been there since that day. She's been completely absent ever since. The person at the restaurant couldn't get in touch with her. He was really worried. That can't be. It can't be. It's only circumstantial evidence, but after she left us at the library, but before she made it to work, I think it's appropriate to consider her having disappeared during that time. Right after Shion ran away without me? It seems that you didn't know. Maybe if you'd said something earlier, this would have gone more quickly. Now you understand, right? You're the only one left. You're the only survivor of the 4 who slipped into the ritual storehouse. It couldn't be. It just couldn't be. If something else happens, it would happen to you. I need you to understand that, Mayabara-san. It can't be. It can't be. It can't be. Shion had already disappeared? That couldn't be. It couldn't be. I talked to her the day before yesterday. I talked to her last night. She was going to call me again today. That was Shion on the phone. Shion on the phone. It was from Shion. From Shion. Shion has long since disappeared. Next will be you. Then, who was on the phone those past nights? Nosferatu. Who was on the phone those past nights? Who was on the phone those past nights? It can't be! Oh, okay, fucking. Yeah, end the chapter now, I guess. Jeez. Or the part. I thought you were gonna make the revelation, dude, but okay, don't. Do not tip me right now. Alright. Well, I think I'm gonna end this episode here, because I don't have as much time to record today. I didn't really get an hour of the game, per se, but the discussion at the beginning wasn't too terribly long. So, yeah, should be fine. So that's gonna be it for this episode, guys. If you liked it, then be sure to press the like button, and if you didn't like it, then fuck you too. Remember to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all my videos and stuff. And as always, my name is Godzi, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.